Hello, and welcome to our final part with Peter Hitchcock, where we talk about his feature film, A Song for Us, in depth. All about the making of it, the creation, post-production, and all the lessons he learned along the way of making his first independent feature film. Enjoy. And what finally inspired you to be like, I'm going to go make this feature film then?
Right. Well, we were in a situation where I had actually retired. I had started doing a bit of photography, did a lot of traveling, and I started writing. I think part of it, I was getting up early in the mornings, like 4:30, and I started to write ideas, and I thought, well, what am I doing here? So I started writing ideas for this film. And it would start with a paragraph, and then it would start to go into different things. And you have to have a kind of initial concept at first. So the concept was that what happens if you meet someone from 50 years ago? So that's what I started with, a long lost lover. Then it went into where would they meet up? Maybe they made an arrangement to meet by a lamppost in Yorkville, and who are these people? And the whole thing started to come from that seed of an idea. What happens if you meet a person from 50 years ago? How would you react? And if the person was a homeless person, and an old folk singing Chiu, and it just started to build. And so I worked with the script for a long time, and I went to We Make Movies Canada to try out to get these actors to read the lines and things like that. And that was a part of the development of the script that really helped, because you start to hear the lines. I must tell you that I started to think, how is the film going to make money, right? Right from the start. And the movie Once I really liked, and I went to see the musical of it downtown in Toronto, and I thought, well, Once can make 22 million, and it only costs 160,000 pounds. Then maybe I should try to make something like that with music too. So there was all these different elements that came into it, and I'd written them out on pieces of paper and things like that. And the script, I went through a script group where we met in the person's home, and it was all very helpful. Some were very hurtful. Some said the project's not ready, and you could go through all that kind of drama with people. And I kept on working away at it on my own, and then my partner in life came and started to read it, and started to help me modify certain parts, because I was going to take the film up north to a First Nations where this guy was going to be healed, and there was all kinds of ideas. And I eventually shot on Toronto Woods Island, and she helped me just home the whole thing in, and she's a great partner throughout my life, right? And so then she said that she thought it was good. And you just don't know how good it is, of course, And then she said, well, we can spend our money. And I said, well, that's great. We'll go on, just a low budget movie, right? Once only cost 150,000. So we decided to start to chart how we were going to do this. So I started casting and looking for people on Facebook, and there was one group that met in the pilot, and I found my leading lady there. And then the difficult thing with this whole film was that I had to get the musicians who could also act and who could also write the music for the film. And that I went and found my leading man going on the internet, looking for different old singers from the Yorkville days, actually. and that's how I found Keith Mackay, and he turned out to be a wonderful creative individual who could really write good music. And so a lot of his music is in the film, along with, he's done some accompaniment in some of the film where he's not singing. And then I found a casting agent, and the casting agent started to come in, and they were just great. They stuck with me, and it took 6 months to get it properly cast. And they would put calls out, check out videos and everything to try to find it. And to have somebody like that actually stick through it. And this girl, Molly, I can't remember her last name now, but she helped me with the costumes as well. And so because she knew all the actors and things like that, so that was good, right? And then I knew I had to shoot it in 4K, and there's the red cameras, and I really liked the Arri Alexa and stuff like that. I couldn't afford that, but I liked the Panasonic Eva 1, and that's actually 5.7K and shoots HDR. And I thought, okay, and that's how I posted looking for a camera, and it's got a Panasonic cameraman. I shouldn't say cameraman, cinematographer. Or DOP, as to work on the film. He's got an Eva 1, and this great DOP called Gregory Bennett, who's a member of the CSE, said yes, he would be interested, and we all talked, and so the whole film started to come to place, and I had to find the locations myself, and I used partly Set Scouter to find some of the locations. We went on location hunt to see cottages on the island because we wanted to use cottages. And my line producer found a cottage from a location manager who lived opposite him. And the cottage was absolutely wonderful. And so everything started to just all flow together, right? The music was coming. And so the whole pre-production of the film was really quite complicated, not just with casting, but writing the music. And so all of a sudden we're starting to shoot. 20 days later, I had it in the can, and then that's the story so far. Then I edited it, and here we are today with I think a really lovely Toronto story that is not your big blockbuster or anything like that, but I think it's got a really nice way of telling a story.
So you were actually able to shoot 20 days continuously.
That's what line producer said. Well, I think we had a weekend off. Sorry, we had one weekend off. I think that was it. But he said, you better keep the crew together, and stuff like that. I can tell you, being an old guy who's I'm fairly fit because I did a lot of physical camera work and things like that, But I stuck it out. I was fine. I was having an absolutely bloody wonderful time, and 4 hours sleep. I could get up again and do it again. It was one of my greatest experiences in my life.
Well, yeah, and you've been waiting a very long time to make this movie, I feel,
That's right. Well, it's very hard. It's hard as you get older, of course, because it seems to be all the young people are making the groovy movies and stuff like that, and they are. And, to give an old guy a chance is very hard. So I just, I basically didn't want to go through filling out forms, all that stuff that you have to do. I just didn't want to do that. I just did it and put my money down and risked it, I guess, and we'll see if I get it back.
Oh yeah, wait. So, because remember when we talked about this movie, with this project, because a few years ago. So, how did you end up doing it? Did you just fund it all by yourself, or did you do any crowdfunding or investors?
No, I funded it all myself.
Oh, crazy. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So it was sort of like it was one of those difficult choices, of course, but we and if it didn't seem any good to us, we wouldn't have done it. And I don't know. Of course, filmmaking is a real risk, right? And there's a lot of bad movies out there, for sure. This isn't one of them.
And so, did you like just kind of decide like, oh, I'm gonna put this much money into it, or how did you deal with that in terms of like how much you're willing to spend?
No, we thought it was about 100,000. That's what we thought, and of course you go over budget, right? But everybody wasn't paid great wages. I can tell you that. But they were paid what was the going rate for making an indie movie.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm so grateful to them for being part of it. And like I said, earlier, that the whole thing's a collaboration. Like everybody, it's like I think people like the story basically, and it's not one of these nasty movies, right? And it has a heart. And when you've got a story with a heart, I think people are enjoying themselves. They're not caught up in nastiness and ugliness. And I think the film will really help in these particular times. I think when people watch it, it will go on its own pace, and people's own who they are will watch it and get something out of it. I hope. I really hope that this will help turn things around for some people. Especially, it's not just a film for old people, but as far as being when you do get old, you do start to look back and you kind of wonder about your life and what you're going to do now. So it's a very sort of inspirational film for old people, but it's also for young people to see that this is what happens when you get old. You look back at your life story type of thing. You go back and you reconnect with your friends. This is what I've been doing. I've been reconnecting with my friends on the internet. So. And you get to look back at a long book,
Right. And I mean, the movie's set in Yorkville too, because that was the place that meant so much to you in your youth.
Well, it did. I mean, I think everybody knows who played in Yorkville. I mean, the wonderful musicians that came out of Yorkville. But even before Yorkville, there was the Beatniks.
Right. We might have some young people listening. Who were some of the people you watched in Yorkville, actually?
Well, I couldn't afford much, right? Tim Harden I went to see. But originally there was, you see, I came in '67 and Yorkville was already going in the '60s. And that's when folk really was there. I'm really bad with names these days, but there was Joni Mitchell played there. There was a First Nations lady, Buffy St. Marie was one person. There was a lot of blues back then too, and so there was Howling Wolf. There's all these. I have to make a list. I'm sorry, I can't.
We can pick it up later. Like if you.
Yeah.
Like, and how long did you spend writing the movie? Because I remember we talked about this movie a while ago, but I can't remember when it was.
Well, I'm going to have to look up that too. But I think it's a good year and a half.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad actually. Like since you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah, but there might have been 4 or 5 months before that, thinking about what was I going to do, and so I went to the Yorkville Revival party down at the corner of Yonge and Davenport. The Masonic Temple, we used to call it. I think it's still that now. I met up with a whole bunch of old friends. I got introduced to Gordon Lightfoot and got to talk to him about guitar playing and how does he hang on to his nails and things like that, those sort of things. So I met the person who was helping me with the legal stuff to get the music rights and things there. it was all kind of like you go to these different events, and all of a sudden things start to happen, right? And at that point, I was all trying to write the idea, and then I did a little filming of another revival of Yorkville in the pilot, and I met some more people there and started talking to them. So, and then I went around talking to various other musicians and things like that. So I did my due diligence in terms of researching what I thought I knew, and stuff like that. But I still had a strong storyline in the film, and so I think young people will find it really interesting to try to see what we were going through when we were younger. There was the Vietnam War, there was protests. We were quite rebellious, and there was this kind of feeling that we could change the world. And it was a very, very strong feeling. And I don't know whether we feel that right now. Sometimes I feel that, this virus has happened and actually changed the world around in terms of recognizing the environmental dangers, and also the social change that's coming on with people's rights. And I think maybe we could still have time to change the world, but back then we really believed we could, and I think we tried, but a lot of good came out of it, and the hippies all moved off to communes, and a lot of spirituality came out of it. Then New Age came out of it. I don't know whether people know what New Age is now. That was very big down in LA when I was there.
I know the name, but I don't think I know exactly what it is.
Well, I think New Age was really developed by a lot of writers and philosophers about the way things are, and it's hard to just sort of say in a nutshell what it is. It's kind of almost like a feeling of what you are in this world, and how we express ourselves in the universe. It's a very deep kind of way of looking at life. And it certainly was somewhat of a social change, but it never really quite happened because people have to make a living, quite honestly. But it was certainly an experimental way of thinking.
Right. Yeah, no, that's cool. So then how long, I mean, you had a lot to do in 20 days, because I've been on movies that are 20 days. And, how long were your shoot days? And was it hard to get through them for you?
It wasn't, because I was like a kid in a candy store, right? I was just having a great deal of fun. It was energizing more than anything. I think, and I wasn't sitting around at all. But it was like, I would say, I never really counted the hours, but it felt like it was a good 10 hours for the crew at least. I think sometimes we had a lot of problems too. Things didn't work out the way you plan, as any shoot, but especially a shoot on a low budget. Suddenly we had this wonderful location for the coffee bar, and the person that was going to sort of set it all up for us was in a car accident, got hit by an Uber. She was in an Uber car and she got hit, and we couldn't get hold of her, and so we lost a day there, right? And then we were struggling at night time till 1:30 at night trying to get the shots in because we had the talent booked, So there was some different, very difficult days that we had. The location in Wards Island was really difficult because we had to catch the ferry, and the ferry runs at certain times, and I'd created a scene on the ferry. We had permits, of course, but I thought they were going to continue going over to Central Island, but they actually changed and go over. I thought they were going to go over to Wards Island where the film was being shot, and the ferry would change course and go to Central Island, and then we'd have to keep going backwards and forwards to shoot our dialogue scene of two people on the ferry. But basically, it all went through. We didn't really have any major problems other than the fact that the first day shoot, I was shooting outside, and all of a sudden a huge 100-year rain came down on us, and that we actually lost the shot. We never went back. We somehow recreated it in the edit room, but we had our moments. I can tell you that.
So wait, was this a union show or did you shoot non-union?
No, this is non-union.
Oh, okay.
I don't mean to put down actor, but I went and talked to other actors who didn't want to be part of ACTRA. And so there is quite a lot of non-union people out there that are absolutely brilliant and quite capable, but they prefer to do indie movies. And that group of people that I went with, I mean, I went to various pubs to meet, like there was one at the Black Swan that's no longer there now, but they had all kinds of actors talk about their experiences and things like that, and filmmakers there, and we would chat and things like that. I mean, I just met a lot of people. I mean, I've been, basically a very quiet person, in the last few years, and then all of a sudden I'm now going out to the pubs again,
Right, it's full circle. Well, it's good.
Yeah.
And so because it was non-union, then could you? I mean, obviously you try to not shoot really late days, but then the schedule-wise, time-wise, it was more flexible for you guys to extra hour or.
Well, it was. I think people, as long as I was kind of, as far as the hours goes, I think it's a crew that worked the longest, right? But also the actors, and we had makeup people, we had costume as well to do. It would make for a long day. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We would work sometimes from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 at night, right? So that was like a
13-hour
day. 13-hour day, So we did have some of those days, and we went on and rented a place on Queen Street that the owner was very difficult and wanted us out by 9. We weren't able to use the room that we thought we were going to use. Streetcars were going by, and of course, back in those days, Yorkville never had streetcars, right? So we had a lot of noise and stuff like that to deal with. And of course, working with sunlight and things like that too. I mean, I wish I'd shot with 2 cameras. So I was going to shoot with 2 GH5s actually. That was the original plan. Then you could cut it really easily. You could shoot fairly fast, right? But now the film, it looks spectacular. It looks like a real movie, right?
Right, exactly, and that's all that matters in the end.
Yeah, I'm pleased with the visual look of it.
Right.
Can't wait to see it on HDR. That's in a big cinema.
Well, I mean, people have HDR at home now, so.
Oh, an HDR player?
Well, no, a lot of the basically a lot of the 4K TVs now have HDR.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, the reason I was, also chose the EVA 1, of course, is because Netflix recognizes the camera. Oh. And Netflix has gone HDR. I don't know how they're doing it during this pandemic period, because I think they're slowing the bandwidth down now. So I think the people are getting the full blast.
Well, no, they just turned down the default. You can still put it back up.
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah,
I just thought it's maybe the cable companies or something. Or
right. No, yeah. It's, you can still. So you actually about the visuals, because this is a period piece and an independently made movie. What did you have to do to create the hurdles to make a period piece?
Well, yeah, there was a few films out there that we took a look at, and Llewyn Davis was probably one of the best examples, inside the coffee bar there that we had, and Greg asked me, what was it like back then? He's much younger than me, of course, and I said, well, everyone was smoking, right? So it was a kind of a smoky atmosphere. So we had a smoke gun in it. It was all very dimly lit, very kind of a barren kind of, not like the coffee bars of today, right? It's all kind of like pretty basic, right? In my coffee bar that I had in England, I had the lights down really low, and you could gradually start to see if you sort of waited about 10 minutes and your eyes adjusted, right? So, but in terms of the film, I've had to sort of brighten it up a bit because I think people would like a brighter picture.
Right. Well, David's is pretty dark too, and like there's not a lot of contrast.
That's right. Yeah. It was a well shot picture. I think that as far as creating period pieces, I mean, one could start to look at the types of film stock they were using back then and stuff like that. And I've sort of taken it in mind in some cases in terms of the grading, but you've got to have a certain standard to the picture too, right? So sort of a little compromise here and there, but I don't think people won't know what it looked like back then, but we've got stock shots that I've got in the film of Yorkville in a couple of places. So that will help try to bring back part of the memory anyway.
Did you do any like adding grain in there or anything like that?
We took grain out. We used neat to take out some of the grain on the stock shots. But apart from, I didn't really. I kept grain down to a bit of a minimum, as much as possible. I mean, the cameras works very well in low light.
And then because you had to, you're doing a lot of location shooting. Did you have to do anything to kind of take things out or frame things out, or? Oh,
sure, yeah. I mean, we basically went all over trying to find this perfect place for the coffee bar, which was really the hardest, right? And it was Molly Johnson, I think you mentioned the place to the person who's doing our casting called Molly, and she turned us onto it, and I thought Kensington Market was a perfect area for it, and I would have liked to have tried to recreate the street scenes and stuff like that, and it was just too costly for us to do that, I would have liked to done some VFX. Greg suggested that we do that, and I did try to contact some students, and nobody replied to my call for help.
Yeah, those things can be tough for sure to get. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of, like filmmakers, young and old, listening. You're a longtime filmmaker, veteran, so I'm sure you knew what you were doing going into this, but still making your first feature film, did you, during the filming, kind of come up with lessons that you learned while you were directing this film?
Yeah, I'm sure. I guess anybody will tell you is be prepared, like Baden Powell said, right? You've got to be prepared. And I could have been better prepared, I have to tell you. It was, but it doesn't dawn on you till you're actually doing it sometimes, we suddenly decided that we were going to use a Steadicam, and we brought over Zedfred, who's a really good Steadicam guy, and I actually had to, basically come up with all the shots right then and there, and how we were going to do it. Nothing was storyboarded, and it would have been nice to have gone through and storyboarded it. But because I'm a documentary filmmaker, I can sort of think on my feet, and whatever's available to me, I can make something out of it, right? So it depends on the type of person you are, right? I basically turned the bad situations into good all the time, where I found a way of getting around it or something like that. We could always do it better. There's always going to be that feeling at the end of the film, oh, I wish I'd done that, But looking at the film now, I'm really very pleased with what I did, and I'm getting good feedback from people who've seen it, and so I wish I had a bigger budget. I wish I had more time, stuff like that, but I would have been able to make it otherwise. So I didn't have much of a choice.
Were you ever tempted to be like, okay, yeah, we really need that, we'll just pay for it?
That happened many times. In fact, we did go over budget, but if we needed it, we needed it, right? If we, we cut out a big scene at the end that I decided not to use. It didn't tell part of the story, and I wanted to create a scene in the hall on the island. It's far too expensive, and so we tried to recreate it in the Transat Club. And it actually, in actual fact, when this friend of mine, Cathy Young, came over and looked at it, and we said, "This is the problem we're having," and stuff. She said, "You don't need it. It ends perfectly like this." And we went, "Oh, all right." So there's moments like that when you sometimes get too close to the film, and you have to listen to other people, and by listening to other people, we got a good film out of it,
And being you've been working on the post by yourself for so long. What have you learned from going through this post process?
I think first of all, editing a film, putting it together, cutting drama, adding music, sound effects, that's no problem with me. But the editing program, Final Cut Pro 10, and so the editing side of it, my son actually has also been helping me as well. I should mention him because he's a filmmaker as well, and it's quite a daunting task when you've got almost 40 terabytes of material to cut, and the process was quite something. So I would basically edit it all, and then Ian would come over, and then he'd take a look, and then make some suggestions, and then we would carry on, and he would tell me a few more things about how Final Cut Pro worked and what you could do. And you need a great memory with this program because it's quite complicated. So I had thousands of notes that I had to keep referring to go through it. But I did manage to do it, and we ended up having quite a difficult time color correcting it because it's from HDR, and it's sort of like you color it and then you go back and you look at it on a regular, what they call 709, a lower format, and it doesn't look the same. And so you go back, and it's like we had to go back and forwards quite a few times to make sure that we had it right, and it's quite time consuming. So anybody who's making a feature, do plan on getting a good color grader, or when you do it, you've got a lot of time to do it yourself.
Yeah. Was that an easy decision to decide to do the grading yourself? Because that's usually something that I will always be like, I'm going to pay someone to do this part.
The budget really is part of it, but also it's a choice of. I'm an independent filmmaker. And then I have to tell this guy, well, no, you're not doing it right, or something like that. I mean, I could sit there, I guess, and do it, but it was a case where it was controlling the visuals is what I wanted to maintain, is to try to make sure that I'm getting the best out of the shoot as I possibly can.
Right. And since you did so much of the writing and pre-production and post by yourself, so really most of the budget went to like the actual shooting, like the production part.
Yeah, so I haven't been paid for shooting or for any of the work at all, writing, directing, editing.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And the equipment we use to edit, we haven't. It's all high-end iMac and stuff like that. So, it's still, I mean, it's for love of filmmaking more than anything.
Yeah. I'm thinking about my own project. I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, well, that's okay, because it's a good place to come from when you're interviewing a guy who's gone through it, which is, I mean, this is a very dramatic thing to do, right? You know, my God, there's so many decisions. If I was starting it again, I'd probably, I probably could, if I had a budget, man, I probably would use actor people possibly, but the actors that I got was pretty good. I mean, I don't think you can fault any of them. They were excellent. The crew, I think the crew could have had a little bit of extra help. We could have had a few members, and I could have had an assistant director, which would be bloody lovely.
Oh, you didn't have an assistant director?
No. And we had a script and continuity person that we just had for a few days. We didn't have the space. We were in a small little cottage on Ward's Island, right?
But then, how did you schedule everything and the call sheets and everything then?
No, that was our line producer did that. So.
Oh, okay. Kind of like a dual role then.
So he laid everything out for us. He handled all the permits and things like that.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that was pretty good. And the call sheets.
Yeah, because we usually change day to day sometimes,
Yeah, and so basically we had a person who was handling the actors as well, Molly, right? So the casting person that really helped a great deal, and she stuck with us and helped with the costumes as well, was Molly Knight, and she was quite something in terms of like her experience and sticking to it and coming up with ideas and things like that. Well, this is the other interesting thing is that how to promote a movie now. And
right.
So I've got a website, and I've got a trailer edited on there. I've got some photos up there, right? I've also got a Facebook site for it.
Was that one, like, how did the line producer as assistant director work during the shoot? Did it work?
No. So there was no assistant director, just a line producer. And the line producer was, you've got to have a line producer because they help you with all the legal, technical budgeting. He kept track of the costs of things. He arranged for the locations and things like that. So if I had a trouble, like with the location person or something like that, he would get onto it. He kept the whole show together. Very important person.
Oh, okay, right. So he just did the schedules. Like, he didn't do any of the assistant director duties during the shoot. You did that. Not really. No. He would, like everybody, he would come up with some ideas and things like that. But he was basically a line producer. I think he did help me, with some of the things, but not as an assistant director would. No. Right. Oh, okay, got you. So that's something that you learned, that you're like, oh, I would have been really good if I had an AD.
Yeah, well, it would have been great to have a person like that. But if I've got to convey the information to that person, and how much we'll just tell it to the other people too. The size of the locations were very small. I mean, to get everybody into a location would have been impossible, right?
Right.
We could have burned up all the oxygen in the room, right?
Right. Gotcha.
So it's logistics, right? So a light crew, you can shoot fast, and you can basically get things done. We had issues with the power going off in a whole block where we were shooting, right? We had our problems, but assistant director could have helped us in a lot of the problems that we had. Some things happen. It happens, right? People don't show up, and you go, "Oh my God, what am I going to do now? I've got to build a whole set myself somehow," right?
Right.
And luckily, the crew was all indie filmmakers, right? So everybody pitches in. They don't. Well, that's not my job. I'm not allowed to do that. Everybody was trying to make a film, right? That's why I'm kind of like, if you want to make your own indie film, you basically try to, respect their times. I mean, you put money into good food and things like that. We didn't scrimp on the food side of things. Everybody had a good lunch, a good lunch hour. I think basically everybody's happy. I still chat to members of the crew, so they're still speaking to me.
Exactly.
But you can't fall out with the crew by working on an indie film. My son was a camera assistant on a feature film, a trainee type of thing, and he was treated so badly by the crew that he never wants to work on a film again.
Yeah, they can.
So that's a bloody union for you, right? So I don't know. Union's got its purpose, and God bless them. And I'm certainly a socialist, but I just when you don't have the money to pay everything and all the details that cover it all, they're taking over your film.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So how much footage you ended up with at the very end? Like how many hours?
Ooh, no, actually I don't. I could tell you. I only know the size of the hard drives, of course, right?
Right.
I never laid it all out, all the takes.
Oh, okay, yeah,
but I can tell you that as when I was younger making films, my ratio would be quite high. In this case, it could have been 1-to-1 or 1-to-3, but it was like they had to do it in 1 or 2 takes.
Oh wow! Okay, so you were sticking to that.
Is that crazy? Yeah, I had to. Otherwise, I couldn't have got the film made. And I had to. I don't think I blew it. If an actor started, I said, well, that's fine. It's natural,
And did you do any rehearsals at all? Since you had to keep takes to a minimum.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, actually. I'm forgetting all this, so I'm glad you're carrying it. But yeah, I did rehearsals in my living room.
Oh, okay, cool. Like for a week or 2 weeks, or?
Oh, well, first of all, I did all my interviews with a video camera, and then I got them back to work together, and I would say maybe 3 or 4 days just running through the lines.
Okay.
Not a biggie, but just to make sure that everybody knew their lines, so that when you go on camera, they could say them, right? So and to see if the writer had done anything wrong, right? So I was able to do a little bit of re-editing there. So certainly doing rehearsals is really beneficial to the script.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have a website, you have a trailer, so where can people find out more about the project?
It's the name of the film. It's called asongforus.com.
Oh, that's simple.
asongforus.com.
Nice.
And there's about 10 songs in the film, original songs, and other kinds of music. I mean, there was it's a kind of a level, you go and look at the movie once, right? And then you go and look at La La Land, right? And you go, what kind of a musical, what kind of creative thing are you going to do? How far real are you going to be, or how sort of dramatic and stuff like that, and show busy and stuff like that? And those are the problems that I, as a director, had to face. But everybody was great, did great performances, and it certainly looks better than the movie once did. but once had its own particular spirit that was really good. But the movie looks professional and it looks good. The actors are really good. Lots of music. So,
yeah, what were the biggest challenges on a movie like this for you?
Well, there was one challenge when we were ready to shoot, and one of the lead actors pulled out, and we don't know quite why. I mean, it was like it ended up being quite a big mystery to us, and we all of a sudden had to find somebody for the younger Tom. We got an older Tom and a younger Tom, and this guy was a marvelous actor and a really good singer. We tested and tried and did the rehearsals and things like that. I wasn't going to go and carry on the shoot if I couldn't find someone, but this worked. That's probably one of the hardest parts in the film, is to get all the people that work well, right? And they're believable, and and as far as being the 60s, a lot of people don't remember the 60s, don't even know what happened in the 60s, don't know what it was like. There's have you heard of a person called a digger?
A digger?
Yeah.
Is that a job or?
No, I know. That's what we kind of make a joke about that. But a digger is kind of a social responsible person that works in the community and has a certain philosophy about life and goes about trying to help people. And there were several diggers down in York who were helping the kids who came in. They had no money, or where did they go? And they would try to find them a place to go and where to get clothes and where to get food. And there's a you look up the word digger and you'll find it started in San Francisco, and it was the social leader of the community, really. And so we talk about those, what a digger does, right? So there's things that I think people, when they look at it, they'll understand a little bit about what we felt when we were in the 60s, and we were quite rebellious too, right? Like what's going on right now, my gosh. It seems like to be the same sort of thing right now. We weren't getting shot at, but they were certainly getting shot at in Vietnam. And 90,000 people died in the Vietnam War, right? It's a big war. As much as the pandemic, people are dying from the pandemic right now. The film's got a kind of a social cause with it. But we have a friend who was a digger that came round to see the film and really liked it. And so I go, oh, good, right, I'm on the right track, right? I've actually featured him in the documentary part of the film. I found some documentary footage when they were protesting. And so there's all kinds of aspects that I think the young people, we deal with, smoking marijuana too, sex, things like that. That's other issues that we don't know quite how it's going to play. But I think we carried it quite well, because we would always offer like another alternative. Well, one person would say you should be smoking that stuff. It's not good for you, right? So we try to keep a balance with things like that. We had a guy who was overdosed. Our main actor overdosed in the film. So there's some stories in there that I think people would kind of relate to, even young or old.
Right. And did does the final film stick to the script for the most part, or did you have to cut stuff, or is that
that some people would throw in extra words here and there, and they sounded great, so I just kept it in. So, yes, I kept pretty well entirely to the script, except the ending kind of changed a little bit when we were in the edit room. And a couple of other scenes that weren't going anywhere properly, I managed to trim. But the film is now 144 minutes long.
Oh, so 144 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So with credits.
Yeah.
So it's a long film, but I was stuck with going through two time periods and telling the story when they were younger, and then there's a story about when the mother's daughter is filming. It's a homeless busker down an alley, and she brings it to her mother, who lives on the island, who's a crazy artist, still smoking pot, by the way, and shows her what she shot that night before on her laptop, and her mother recognizes it as her long lost lover, and so she starts to tell the story about what it was like back in Yorkville, and we go back into time, and it reveals the complexity of the period back then, and the relationships people had, and it tells a story of the politics as well, and the social issues, and our friend. Well, I don't want to reveal the story, right? Because it's got. Yeah, got a really good story. Yeah.
Well,
don't tell the ending. Well, in my trailer, don't tell the ending. So the ending is a bit like Hitchcock, right? No, don't tell the ending, right? But I just watching it, I just feel really comfortable knowing that I made a good film.
Right, and that's what matters.
Yeah. And when people will look at it, I think they'll like it. I think there's some people obviously who like horror movies and all this, cops and crime stuff and everything. I mean, I've got so fed up with that, Andrew, on the TV now. I can hardly watch TV. And on Netflix and Amazon and all the others, there's less entertainment. I think we need more kind of human stories now.
Yeah, I think so. I think we need, and I mean, the thing is, we've had probably 10, 15 years of anti-heroes, being the protagonists.
Yeah.
So I think, eventually the culture will kind of get tired of that, because we see it all the time. Where the bad guys are kind of the good guys, the Breaking Bads and the Dexters and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, the whole people with the formulas, the three act play I was just watching. There's one guy talking about it, and they said the first act the guy goes up the tree, the second act the guy gets stuck and can't come down, and the third act he comes down. Right? I didn't have a rule in my scripts. I was never trained to write scripts, right? Though I've read a couple of books and stuff like that, but I wrote the story as I was seeing it, and then editing it,
Right. So now, I mean, now you're almost finished. You're, working on the release. What do you think you're going to do next? Are you hey, I want to make another movie, or what are you thinking?
Oh, well, I think I want to clean up my house. I got so much stuff to throw out. All my Betacam tapes, all that stuff, right? And my garden's weeds in it, so I want to do gardening. And like I said when I first began, I've got a leg injury from just sitting down editing every day. I mean, literally every day. I haven't taken hardly any days off at all, except for when I went to England over to see a couple of the film festivals over the last year. But I want to actually get my own life back together again, and I don't know whether I'll make another film or what. I'm not anxious to do that right now. What I'm anxious to do is to get the film to market, and that's a real task. I mean, to try to get it with a distributor is difficult. Because they just want the real big budget ones, right, to make a lot of money at, right? Quite honestly, if I can sell it, which I think I can, we'll see. We'll call me back in 6 months and see how it is.
Right.
Yeah, it's it's a commercial film. It's not a film that people would not want to put certain ads in if they had to, but I would hate to have commercials in the film, quite frankly.
Yeah, I've tried to watch some of that stuff on Gem, and like the commercials just keep interrupting, and then I just stop.
Yeah. Apparently, you've got to pay them something to watch it. I mean, it's a good streaming service. They've got some good films on CBC and stuff like that. I mean, I'm really a strong Canadian, and even though I've got this accent, my kids are Canadian, my grandkids are Canadian. I want to make Canadian stories, and I look back at the films that were the early films of the independence in England, right? There's still people out there that are making low budget indie films. The guy that made I, Daniel Blake, great film. Yeah, Ken Loach, a wonderful guy to follow as a filmmaker. That's the kind of filmmaker I would like to be associated with. Those kinds of people, but he's a master at it. And the early days of the British cinema too had some of those films, so it's to me, if we can tell stories that can help people, that could benefit people, I think that's, as filmmakers, we should strive to do. If it doesn't entertain like they think it should do, or something like that, screw off. I mean, just actually tell a really good story and have an ending that can actually change people's way of thinking about themselves or the world we live in.
I think that is a beautiful way to end this first conversation. Maybe we'll have another. Thank you for being part of this, Peter. I'm really looking forward to seeing the release of your movie.
Me too. So thanks a lot for that, because that's the first time we've been, being interviewed. I'm sort of anxious to see how this all goes. It's a great adventure being a filmmaker.
And that is the end of our 4-part opus with independent filmmaker Peter Hitchcock. You can check out the trailer at asongforus.com. Hope you've enjoyed hearing the story of his life and all the incredible projects he's been able to work on. I hope you've enjoyed where things are so far, and please write some comments and hit the like button, share with your friends, because this is what it's all about, telling stories by the campfire.